I forgot to remind you, Mark. Good. If you've just joined, introduce yourself in the chat where you're calling from, and if you are a member of Climate Designers. So we'll be hearing from Jackie and Sasha and Freedom tonight about their experiences with pollution and changing the systems that are causing this crisis. Feel free as they're talking to put your questions in the chat or your ideas, and I can read them out afterwards, or you can hold them and ask yourself. That is more encouraged. We would like to encourage everyone to participate and talk after the three lovely people are done presenting. And then afterwards, so discussions like this one come up in our Climate Designers community regularly. The idea for this discussion tonight came from Freedom posting during Plastic Free July. So if you have more that you'd like to talk about and you're not already a Climate Designers member, we encourage you to join, and I'll post that link in the chat here. But first, I'm going to pass it off to Mark to talk a little bit more about Climate Designers.
Awesome, appreciate it. Let me get my stuff going. Cool. All right, so yeah, my name is Mark. I'm one of the co-founders of Climate Designers. Sarah Harrison is on the call as well. We started Climate Designers about 2 years ago. We're actually celebrating our 2-year anniversary, birthday, whatever, next month. So super excited to see where we started and where we are now. And so Climate Designers is a hub for designers and creative professionals from all industries committed to using our creative skills for climate action. And so this has kind of been our kind of North Star. And our mission is twofold: to provide the resources, knowledge, and community to support designers to be climate leaders everywhere that they work, as well as to inspire, motivate, and graduate climate designers by providing climate-focused resources for design educators in higher education and professional development. If there's any design educators in the audience, let me know, hit me up. We should talk. Design education is a huge passion of ours, and we want to provide this stuff for you all so that you can turn around and share with your students how they can become climate designers. Yeah, so globally, humans are facing an existential crisis that will require massive, innovative, rapid, collaborative, systemic change if we hope to survive. Designers facilitate exactly this kind of change for businesses in every industry every day. So at Climate Designers, we empower designers from all kinds to utilize their skills for positive change while building satisfying careers that make an impact on our climate crisis. So equipped with the network and resources that we provide, Climate Designers become the innovators, leaders, and effective activists needed in this moment. And we work with design and creative professionals from any industry who are concerned about the climate crisis. And we don't check IDs at the door. So we even have non-designers in our community. If you're design adjacent, like a project manager or maybe a writer, copywriter, hey, you're in good company. And we get this question a lot: what exactly is a climate designer? And we actually turn that around and ask the person asking us, so what do you think a climate designer is? And if you join our community, it's one of the first prompts that you get as you start to onboard within our online community. And these are just a small sample of how our members have responded to that question. It's always really great to read everyone's response. And speaking of that community, if you haven't already, please join. It's a very active community, thanks to Sasha Bond, who's been kind of the community manager behind all of this, really activating members and to keep conversations going. And we're finding more and more people are doing this as well. You'll meet so many different types of people. You can share content, resources, connect with one another. We've heard stories of people collaborating on projects because they found collaborators on the community. And so definitely check it out. It's really great. You know, set a reminder maybe every day to spend 15 minutes on it. Maybe 15 minutes that you would normally spend on Facebook, spend it on our community, and maybe develop that new habit. And we have chapters. We have global chapters all over the world. We currently have about 10 right now. We have another 10 in the pipeline. So chapters are really growing right now. And we feel like chapters are a really important part of climate designers because climate is going to be affecting every region, every landscape, every area very differently. And so how can we pull all of this global awareness around climate design down to the local level, and how can we create the conditions for collaboration and support for those who are actually in those certain areas addressing certain challenges based on those locations. Oh, and if you are interested in starting a chapter, go to climatedesigners.org/chapters. We're onboarding new chapters all the time. So let me know. And then just a shameless plug, we have a new course that we're offering on the Terra.do platform. Some of you have probably heard of them already. And this is a 6-week course for practicing designers and related creative professionals passionate about taking climate action. You can learn more about the course. Applications are open until October 2nd. So it's around the corner. And then just a few other slides. We get this question a lot too, how do you define success? And it's an ongoing effort. We're building the bike as we ride it. We're creating a whole new creative industry. So we don't have all the answers just yet, but with our members and our community, we're listening, we're co-creating ways that we can make this as successful as possible. So we would love to see tons of different chapters all over the globe. We would love to find certification programs and majors being offered in various education platforms and schools. We would love to have more events going on. We did an event earlier this year. We would love to have more of those. And yeah, we just want to partner up with as many people as possible to provide not only the opportunities for designers to take climate action, but to provide them with perhaps their next career change or collaborative projects or maybe potential business partners. So just kind of a nutshell in terms of what we're trying to achieve with this whole initiative. And with that, thanks again for joining, spending your morning, afternoon, evening with us. And I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Freedom to kick off the event.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that, Mark. And thank you and welcome everybody who's here. Some of your familiar faces. It's awesome to see you. And to new friends, excited to meet you and excited to find ways of making a difference together. This session came by in a little thread Sasha Bond and I actually started deliberating upon. It was Plastic Free July, and I am a member of Climate Designers, but I don't see all too often conversations on waste, conversations on pollution, and this is really coming from the place where we know that waste is an error of design. If we as designers started to think, redesign, reimagine, re-engineer consumer good packaging, food packaging, product packaging, the opportunity to make a difference is just sky's the ceiling, right? Like it's so profound. And for some reason, that conversation on circular economy I felt it was just not happening, and thought Plastic Free July was a good time to kick that off. And Sasha Bond and I kind of discussed what this could mean, right? And one of my personal learnings as a designer is we got to learn from activists. They are on the ground, they're making a difference, and what they're doing can be integrated in the way we design for a better world. Like there are some principles and values there that can be integrated in any type of design. So really the goal of this evening is to bridge the gap between activists and designers and understand the very meaning and essence of what is waste as an error of design? What are the consequences of some of the packaging decisions and choices we make every day as we work as designers? And to explain that, to join those dots, we have Jackie Muniz, who is the founder of The Last Plastic Straw and the advocacy manager at the Plastic Pollution Coalition. Her wealth of knowledge on these issues is absolutely stunning, and there is so much to learn from her. So she'll share a little bit about her time on the field, and then we'll be joined by Sasha Atkins, who is an expert on the subject. She's a professor. She teaches this. She understands this like really like nobody else. And again, as designers, if there are opportunities to take these ideas and concepts and make them circular, integrate them in the work we do, the opportunity to make a difference is profound. I'll come in after that, probably take 5 to 10 minutes and share 2 real life examples of actually driving design to fight pollution, what that really means, what are those values, what those systems and services look like. The hope is for this to be a discussion, and just feel free to keep adding your thoughts, ideas, comments in the chat, and I know we'll pick them up. So Mark and Sasha Bond, if you think that's good context, I will hand it over to Jackie.
Take it away, Jackie.
Thank you. So we'll go to the first slide. All right. So yeah, my name is Jackie Nunez. I'm the founder of Last Plastic Straw. I'm also the advocacy program manager for Plastic Pollution Coalition. And I'm just going to give you a brief overview, a little bit of background about myself and the coalition. So let's go ahead and start with the coalition. Next slide. Thank you. So it's a huge coalition, started in 2009, and it's growing every day. We're also now, as it's become, plastic pollution has become a big issue in the world, and a lot of people are getting involved. We are part of actually bigger movements than even our coalition. We're part of the National Reuse Network. We're part of the Break Free from Plastic movement. We're intertwined with a lot of climate movements and environmental justice movement. So it really does hit a lot of different angles. So next slide. Next slide. Okay. So yeah, a little bit about me is I do self-described slacktivist to activist. I've been a river guide, I've been kayak guide, all my jobs have been outdoors, but really in 2009, I became interested in it and educated myself because it's just exponential, the amount of plastic I saw everywhere. And as I educated myself, I realized why. A lot of these organizations grew out of around this time as well. And when you do your homework and you look at what was happening then, we were seeing a lot more plastic showing up everywhere. And it's not a big surprise because we've actually found that in the last 15 years, half of all the plastics that's ever been made has been made in the last 15 years. So it's been growing exponentially. And so it's a big aha moment for a lot of people. Next one. Next slide.
My next slide button seems to have stopped working. Gosh.
Okay. Do you want me to share my screen then?
I am so sorry about that. Let me just try it one more time. Yep.
Okay. So a little bit about this. I had my aha moment. It was basically I was sitting at a beachside bar, and I got served a plastic straw and a glass of water that I didn't ask for. And that was my light bulb moment. I had been volunteering and learning about the problem, and a lot of what was happening there is a lot of data was coming out about plastic in the oceans and what we can do to change that. There were a lot of scientists saying we need behavior change, and we weren't finding it. And when I thought, well, the straw will probably be the one, just by the reactions of my friends and family and going out to businesses and talking about it. So this was my goal, the last plastic straw. Next slide, please.
Gosh. Okay.
Okay. So just kind of timeline, I became a proud member of Plastic Pollution Coalition and in 2014. And that was really great for me because that gave me access to all the other organizations working on it, but not only organizations. I was talking to schools, I was talking to businesses. I mean, there was a lot of people that are under this umbrella. So it really gave me access to that, and also I was able to start to plant the seed amongst my own community of plastics about the significance of the plastic straw. It was going, but then the turtle video went viral, and then that's how it all blew up. So yeah, and now I'm a project of Plastic Pollution Coalition, and now we're working on policy, which is kind of how the trajectory went. So this is what I've really been concentrating on, is the Speaking Truth to Plastic initiative. And this cartoon came out in the New Yorker. I don't think reusable straws are going to be enough. And you see this, I don't know if you guys can see this, but it shows like, heat wave, storm, basically all the climate stuff going on. This is me in 2020. We're introducing the Break Free from Plastic Pollution Act, which is a federal legislation. It's actually a pragmatic, practical, like comprehensive legislation on plastics that has already been proven in the state and local level, a lot of the components of this. And so we're looking for support through your local legislators and everything else, and we can follow up with a link to that and how you can get involved if you want to help kind of push support for this legislation. So it's not a matter of if, it's just when this is all happening. So how do we design the future we want to be? Well, I just was thrilled that I was able to finally use this slide. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this movie, Her, but this is kind of like this future thing of this is future LA. And what they did is the designers in here really painstakingly looked at like, what would it look like if we had all of our needs met with technology and everything, and how would people express themselves? And what was happening is you can see how he's dressed. They're wearing like wool and natural fibers, right? It's almost like hipsters in the future. And what was really funny, everybody made fun of this movie because the whole thing is they were trending like high-waisted pants. But one of the things that struck me, and I kept thinking, I was looking at like, what was this about this that was different? And it was I didn't see single-use plastic used in here. It was like, if you had everything, taken care of and everything was clean, it almost looked like someplace out of maybe Japan or Denmark or Scandinavian country that had all this, these just really crisp, clear lines. But then there was, when they showed their desks or even down to his phone, it was made out of like a 1930s cigarette holder to make it look really cool with brass and leather and everything, right? So then how are people expressing themselves? And that's what people wanted. They wanted some of these handmade stuff. But yet, they kind of failed on this, so they couldn't get away with showing a glass bottle, but then it has the plastic cap. The lidless sippy cup, it's actually the one that won a design competition. It's called the Complete Cup, where you don't even need a lid, and you don't even need a straw in it either. It's a sippy cup, but then for whatever reasons, I don't know why, they threw all of their designer, stuff out the window and threw a plastic straw in it for this one scene, which killed me. It was so ironic when I went back to look at this movie to see where is the single-use plastic, and lo and behold, it was the plastic straw. Well, and the lid there, but that was it, So next one. So truth to plastic, I mean, this is happening. It's not like, again, it's not a matter of if, it's when. This is actually a couple of ad execs out of the UK that have started to take matters into their own hands and just doing some guerrilla marketing. And so just trying to get this real communication out, because really we've been hoodwinked to believe from industry that plastic is, recyclable, that it's able to be a material that we can handle on the waste end, and that it's this like clean, sterile thing, and it's convenient, and it's none of that. So the more that we can start moving beyond plastic and looking towards solutions of refill, reuse, and even materials that are not so extractive, not so wasteful, not so polluting and toxic, the quicker we can go to where we need to go, and also be able to design the future we want to see. I tell kids all the time, using plastic for single use is a design flaw, and you can redesign your future. Next slide, please. So this is a great quote that I found on social media, and this is organization Slow Factory, which I actually kind of want to explore a little bit more, but it is true. Everything we make comes back to earth as either food or poison. So it makes us really think, like, what is your poison, and how are we going to move forward? And with all of this knowledge comes the duty to act, and how are we going to move forward in the work that we do? And I think that's it. So now it's Sasha.
Thank you again for inviting me to be here with you. First slide, please. Mm-hmm. I started out looking at the scientific problems associated with plastics, and my dissertation was about how methyl mercury concentrates in some types of plastics. And at some point, I realized that there was enough data about the problem, and we have the technology to phase out the poisonous plastics. What needs to change is the culture. And so I've been focusing on the way that we talk about plastics, the way that we present this narrative and the consequences that it has. So there's a truism that when you shine a spotlight on one thing, you're creating darkness on everything around it. And it seems that industry has been hell-bent on putting that spotlight on individual behavior. And the problem is that you're mismanaging your waste or that you are irresponsible. Next slide, please. And so there's actually quotes like this: "You aren't the problem," said to US consumers, "Asia is." If you're a responsible adult, implying that adults in Asia are irresponsible. So when we look at quotes like this from the American Council on Science and Health, which was funded by the Koch brothers, we see the violent consequences of that sort of narrative in the El Paso massacre, where he actually said that he was wanting to shoot people, exactly, Mark, othering, in order to, quote, protect the environment. And so I just want to sound a warning that we should be really careful when we're talking about wasteful consumers or environmental purity, environmental preservation, and against dirt and pollution, because these stories are being co-opted for nefarious purposes. Next slide, please. That's a part of the next slide. Isn't that odd? I'm not seeing the whole next slide. So I want to shine the spotlight on workers who are involved in the chemical synthesis and production of plastics. And if you can see my cursor, what you see here are these dark bands at the very tip of the fingers. These are where the bones of the worker who makes vinyl chloride are resorbing. In other words, the fingertips are dissolving because of contact with very, very low concentrations of the building blocks of vinyl. Next slide, please. And this doesn't only affect workers, of course, fence-line communities. So those who are living around these factories, these are children playing sports, so they're breathing more deeply, inhaling more of these noxious fumes in Cancer Alley from a vinyl chloride plant. And on the left, we're seeing extraction of the fossil fuels that go into making the plastics. And so I want us to always remember that it's not just about the disposal phase or even just about risks to consumers who are using toxic products, but those who are involved in making them. Next, please. I'm still only seeing bits. Oh, there we go. And to remember that with that disposal phase, industry's whole campaign around recycling is not actually designed to reduce waste. It's designed to reduce your guilt so that we keep thinking of ourselves as consumers and keep purchasing. And so I would love to see this phased out as a symbol of environmentalism. Next slide, please. I'm not seeing the slide.
I'm not sure why. I can see it as manila plastics. It did go to the next slide, at least on my screen.
Are others seeing the full slide of the manila recycling? No. Could we try again, please?
Yes, absolutely. I do apologize.
No worries. I don't know about design, but I thought it was a field of trial and error and playfulness.
Are you guys able to see it now?
Yes, we do.
Awesome.
So this is a 13-year-old girl who is not in school, who is making her living by picking waste, pulling whatever might be marketable out of the water. And so I want that spotlight to not only be on the charismatic megafauna in the oceans, but also on the waste pickers, the people who live on the sea, which incidentally, I did for 7 years growing up living on a sailboat. Next slide, please. And I think of recycling with plastic as toxic colonialism, because so much of what's collected in those blue bins is actually going, this was China. This is from a movie called Plastics China. It was going to China. Now with Operation Green Fence and Operation Green Sword, they've shut down the pipeline, and it's now being diverted instead to Malaysia, Indonesia, Vietnam, parts of West Africa. And so it's completing that cycle where by the over-resourced countries are receiving or taking, stealing natural resources and human labor from countries that have been under-resourced. And now we're shipping our toxic waste, including plastic, back for them to deal with. So the parts that are marketable get picked out and the rest is burned in open air fires that are extremely toxic. And I saw a New York Times article about this, and it was focused on how our tofu, even organic tofu, is sometimes cooked over fires that are fueled by quote unquote recycled plastics. And the emphasis of the article seemed to be on whether the tofu is pure and safe for these Western consumers, rather than all of the people that you see in the picture who are working there inhaling that smoke day after day. Next slide, please. So as we're designing materials, I don't want it to just be about what will the emissions be during production, during use, and after disposal? Will it harm the climate? Is it toxic? These are important questions to spotlight, but also, will it reduce the demand for new plastic? Who are the workers and what might their exposures be? What are the impacts on fence-line communities living around these factories or incinerators or landfills? On ecosystems, will this displace other solutions like renewable energy and reusables? I'm particularly an advocate of reusables. And I wanted to open for discussion, what other questions should we be asking as we create tools of analysis for thinking about whether we're succeeding in our design? Next slide, please.
Did it go?
Not
Yeah.
seeing it.
Let's try again. Did it go?
It did, thank you. And so one of the solutions that's being proposed now is we'll make everything out of plants. Set aside for a moment the concern that those plants might be food for others rather than making throwaway packaging. Bio-based and biodegradable plastics are not any safer. In fact, there was a study that looked at PLA, polylactic acid, and found it more toxic than conventional petrochemical plastics. And so we cannot sustain ourselves keeping disposable culture going by just substituting one material for another. Next, please. Remembering that the building blocks of that plastic, the monomer, may be less than half of the weight of the product, we also have additives, fillers, unreacted monomers, residual catalysts, and I put in red the accidental byproducts of the reaction because those aren't even planned and those aren't necessarily fully known, even by the chemists making the product. So this is all about shifting away from that hubris that we can control nature. That's the story, right? That we can make safe things out of toxic products if we get the dosage small enough, or that's a whole nother talk that I do about low dose toxicology and hormone disruption. But what you're seeing here in the blue squares are just some of the toxic additives and toxic chemicals that we just talked about in polyvinyl chloride, number 3 vinyl plastic. You might notice some of these are familiar, like lead. Maybe surprising to some of you that we still put lead in food packaging. BPA, which is bisphenol A, which was phased out of Nalgene bottles and baby bottles, but is still used as a flame retardant in vinyl. So it's a lot more complex than just looking at whether the monomer, the building block, is made out of plants or fossil fuels. Next slide, please. And so I'm really advocating for green chemistry and partnerships with green chemists who can look at the molecules from the stage of the idea inception to production to make sure that we're minimizing waste, that we're minimizing energy use, and that everything that we're manufacturing is truly non-toxic through its entire life cycle, and that it can become part of a safe circular economy. To refer back to what Jackie was saying, everything returns as either food or poison. In this way, we can ensure by design, it returns to the Earth's cycles as feedstock, as food. And now I will pass to Freedom, speaking of food, to share with us about a zero waste grocery option. Thank you.
Absolutely. I'll share my screen in just a moment, and I do apologize for all the mouse and cursor trouble suddenly popping up. So, again, what Jackie and Sasha are saying are like so real, and we want to understand how to actually apply those ideas and concepts into design solutions to achieve this goal of fighting pollution, like leveraging design. Our organization's mission is to make trash history. We are an invention company that redesigns single-use products into reusable products and linear systems into circular systems, so that circularity can be achieved and so that pollution is not created. So I'm going to share with you two quick examples. One is our zero waste grocery delivery service, which is currently active in the Washington, D.C. metro area. We've been testing and piloting since December of 2020. And you will see in a few images how we have been able to make progress in innovating back of the supply chain and front of the supply chain. So from the producer and the farmer, packing at source and reusable packaging, to how it goes to the end user, the last mile home, how everything goes to them in reusable packaging. And this packaging then comes back to us. It is washed and sanitized, and it is recirculated in this ecosystem. And for us, reuse is a way to make a deep impact when it comes to saving water, making sure air is clean, making sure we protect the soil, making sure we're taking a stand on environmental justice, because every possible facet of environmental action that you can think of, our single-use packaging touches that. And if there are systems and service designs to rethink those existing setups, that's when there's an opportunity for a pretty deep change in the supply chain and in the way people get things and the way they return things. So this is the heart of reuse, and this is the first example. So I hope the mouse works this time. But single-use packaging is hindering the fight against climate change. And for us, we want to take on the emissions that are coming from this packaging. There are studies and reports that say that about 29% of emissions in the United States are a result of the way we make, take, and throw things away. And that is linear economy right there for you. So what do we do, right? This is a real life case study of a zero waste grocery delivery service. Looks just like any other, any other shopping website. You can choose. You can.
Freedom, can you try loading that slide again?
Which one was that? This one? Did it work?
There you go.
Awesome. Please let me know if it doesn't work, because for me it is moving forward. So there is an element of design here just with the web interface. You have the whole web experience of being able to pick out a product, understand what that product is, and hopefully you can still see the slides, and add that product to a cart. But the magic happens when you get your delivery. So you should be seeing a delivery slide right now where once an end user places an order, you get a delivery bag, and everything that is delivered to you is in all reusable, returnable packaging. even the way we tag the bags, it's in reusable, returnable tags. So, think about service design in a way where we have to make 20 deliveries in a given day. And let's say every home has 3 bags that need to be delivered to them. Like, you need a way of labeling what these bags are going to be. What bag is going to go to Sarah? What bag is going to go to Mark, right? So even at that level, we're working, we have figured out a system, and we use a system for reusable tags. So we're not printing unnecessary things. And when you get it, this is what it looks like at your doorstep. You'll get produce where it's all loose. It is, it is completely free from single-use packaging. When we've got things like mushroom and Brussels sprouts, really small stuff, we are able to pack them in small cotton cloth bags. Another example of what an end delivery looks like. We work with local bakers in the DC area where they pack all of their baked goods in the reusable packaging that we've designed. So the baker will pack the breads and the flours in the reusable packaging that you see on the screen. And when the end user gets it, after they have used it, they return it on their next delivery. This is a very interesting example, one of our core iterations from this summer. Anytime you go to a grocery store, you'll see that berries are always available in plastic clamshells. That's the default, right? So strawberries and raspberries and blueberries, they always come in single-use packaging. We worked with a local farmer where the farmer packed the berries at the farm in our stainless steel clamshells, and these are the clamshells were moved from like a point A to point B to reach the end user, again taking on single-use packaging. Everybody loves candy. We love candy. We've got around 600 products in the pilot store, which are all free from single-use packaging. This is just one example. This is an image from one of our early adopters, just comparing a regular delivery with what a zero-waste circular delivery looks like, and you can see like there's a bag, and that's a reusable bag. There's no single-use packaging in there. You don't see a label that you have to, pierce through and cut through. So at every level, there's an element of one or the other type of design. And there's service design, there's industrial design, there is experiential design, there's graphic design, there's web design, and all of that is coming together to drive circularity in a way where it brings joy and happiness to the person who receives it and reduces their headache in their work because they don't have to throw out waste. So this is a before photograph.
Hey, Freedom.
Yeah.
Are we looking at the I Love Candy slide?
Oh my God, no, we went quite.
Okay.
Are you able to see the slide that says customers comparing prime?
Yes.
Okay. So this is the visual of what I was referring to earlier. Again, apologies for the slide not working on time. If you see here, this is a before photograph. And this is how regular pantries look like. But what does it mean when you have been able to cut out significant waste from your kitchen pantries, right?
Try that one again.
Shall we try again? Didn't work. Did it go now? Did it go to after?
There you go.
I should just give the controls to somebody else. So this is an after slide. Again, just using all of the types of design that I just said into making an experience like this happen. When I'm going to the next slide now, so you should be able to see a big number. These are some results from our pilot program where we've been able to cut out 5,395 pieces of disposable packaging from entering the waste stream. And this is really not even the tippiest tip of the iceberg. Like I said, this is from a pilot program. And the opportunity to redesign for reuse and returns is simply just like, it's out there, right? And with a policy environment that wants to cut out single-use packaging, we will be better off if we can figure out how to reuse and redesign with the packaging that we are currently working with and the organizations that we are with, or if you're an entrepreneur, where is there an opportunity for design? I know I'd love to share another example, but we should open it up for audience Q&As. So I'll hold back my example for perhaps a Q&A type question, but give it back to Sasha, Bon, and Mark for next steps.
Yeah, we have some great conversations and questions going on currently in the chat. Some of the first questions were around how do we, get this information out to people who are new to the idea, to the outsiders who aren't involved in this movement. Feel free to answer any questions that you see in the chat, or for those of you typing, you turn on your cameras or just unmute yourselves and feel free to ask questions.
That first question that you just asked, I mean, I can answer that too. That's what we do, Plastic Pollution Coalition. I mean, a lot of the people that are outside the movement, that's the reach that we have. Right now with COVID, we have a series of webinars, and actually one of the ones that are coming up is about plastics and climate and tying that together. It's going to be on the 29th, and when we do the follow-up email, I'll give you guys a link to that. But there's a lot, going on with outreach right now. The Story of Plastic is available on YouTube for free. It's been nominated for an Emmy, and that's a great educational tool right there. And it's on Discovery Channel has offered it for free for the month of September, maybe longer, in honor of this Emmy it's nominated for. So you'll be able to access it now on YouTube for free. So there's a lot of education happening to the mass public, and we still kind of need that. Like you said, we need to meet people where they are. But as some of the conversations are going too, it is not just one silver bullet, right? It's not the consumer's fault. And it is a systemic change that we're looking at. So as industry, there's also a place for regulation, and that's where the regulation comes in, because industry won't self-regulate. So how do we make those changes? It's a whole system that's been built around a whole profit model, which I think is flawed, is built off of waste, right? And so it's a real shift that's happening. I think it's a really exciting time to get involved in this, especially as a designer, to really be creative with it. And forget who wrote it there, and Sasha had mentioned it, but basically what was that terminology about being playful, whatever. There's a fun ways to really educate, as you saw with the two ad execs and how they're just doing some guerrilla marketing. I think so much opportunity to just kind of flip this on its head.
Speaking of education that's really playful and effective, that exhibition is coming to Chicago. I know, the plastic bag store, where you go in and shop and everything is made of plastic bags, including the meat and the cakes and everything, just to show people the impact in a really striking visual way. Do you remember the artist's name, Jackie? I'm blanking on it. Maybe we can include it in the resource list that we send out, because there is a
Roland Gray or something like that. I'm actually looking up. We did a whole blog post on it. I can throw the link in the chat, but we'll have that link talking about the plastic bag store. They just had it in LA, and it was a success. It's an interactive, immersive experience.
Thank you all.
Yeah.
Right, and there is a video if you're not able to see the exhibit in person. So it's a way of drawing the consciousness. I always think that I teach undergrad and grad students. If we can use humor to get by those defense mechanisms, that's why bread and puppets are so successful when they go to protest with those enormous paper mache puppets and do street theater, because art and music, I make up little songs to teach things to my students. We could make up songs about plastic that will go into your subconscious and then start changing you from the inside out, whether you realize it or not.
That's another part that designers can play, not just designing the products to be better, but also sharing information and making it interesting and fun.
I just saw something interesting. I've not been able to follow the chats while trying to listen to everybody, but one comment, one exchange caught my eye. So I think the question is about what is this customer going to do with all of the reusables that they get? They're going to create like a library in their home. I think this is so important because reuse alone is not enough. Like you're always figuring out reuse and return, because you can always say, I'm going to reuse my glass bottle that I get, or I can reuse my plastic bottle. You can try to reuse anything, but there is a limit to it if there is no bigger system to return. And when reuse and return go hand in hand, when products and services are designed for use, reuse, return, refill, like that's when we are able to take on the bigger issue of production as well. So it's not just we're giving something in a reusable. There is a system to collect it. There are incentives to return it. Our return rates are over 98-99% because that's the reason people join the service, right? So there is something to that. And I just shared a report in the chat box, which explains how reuse beats single use every single time. It's a report from Upstream. Miriam worked on the report. I think Miriam was actually here just a while ago, and it's a great report. It explains how water is saved when we reuse, because we don't think about how much energy, how much intensity of resources is needed to produce single use. Even if it's a single use paper or cardboard, the problem is we will keep extracting resources all the time, just to make those same types of products again and again. And recycling has some pretty deep limits. So this report called Reuse Wins gets to the heart of the matter, and also lays out frameworks and standards and benchmarks for reuse. It's not like we have one product that we reuse like 3 times and we throw it away. Like that's a complete waste of everybody's time and energy, right? It's like, if there's one product, are you able to use it 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 times? And if the answer to that is yes, that is a very good swap, and that is taking on pollution that is created by design. So just wanted to respond to that one quick piece that caught my eye. But over to you all.
Any other questions that, or if you also want to raise your hand, if you have a question, I can moderate that. I have something that, we can talk about a little bit in the meantime. I mean, this is a question for, I think, everybody here who's a designer, and that's, what do you think is making it difficult for you to change your process? I'm sure that some of you work for agencies, maybe, or other people. And I mean, I know that there are various things that get in our way of changing processes, even though we may mean the best. Does anybody have anything specific that has gotten in their way? Evil clients.
We've been having an issue around engineering requirements, particularly for like more industrial plastics and things that are like bulk dispensers, that sometimes the existing materials options cannot adequately replace certain components due to specifications and requirements to complete the job. So the ability to change some of the plastics out, but not others, and then having to think about the recyclability of, okay, does it have to be broken apart since some are recyclable and some aren't? So engineering has been, at least in my consultancy, the hardest issue. We're actually working on a project right now around that, where they're trying to redesign the system itself because they can't simply redesign the plastic dispenser.
That's great that you're working on redesigning the entire system. Katie, what kind of design work do you do?
So my background's in industrial design. I actually left my last company due to sustainability concerns. I was in the juvenile products industry, which is all about using things for like 2 years and then they break. And you know, when you're selling to Walmart and everything costs $5, it was really soul crushing. But right now I work in a standard studio design consulting firm. We pretty much design products and services and digital apps. I'm now doing more research and strategy, but kind of have my hand in a lot of it. So I was brought in for the strategy part of this project to compare to other companies and see what large corporations are succeeding in sustainability. And so we were getting more into circular economy and circular models, and how might they redesign their supply chain.
Have you seen any really cool examples, Katie? Is there something that stood out to you and for a big company that actually took on circularity?
I have actually. So the parent company of Dulux Paints, I wasn't expecting a paint company to be so incredible, but they are one of the best in the world in terms of sustainable at a large scale. So they're changing all of their paints from oil-based to water-based. They're educating on all of their platforms, how users can use the paints, how there's differences in the way that they can apply them to use less of them, how water versus oil works differently. They've redesigned and created a recycling partnership so that every part of their cans are recyclable, down to even like little hooks on the top. Every single bit they can, so they take them back and break them down and put them back into their system. They even do paint recycling. So they collect the paints and partner with local community organizations where they basically donate the paints for a community projects. So they're managing to literally take everything back, which is pretty incredible. They're also developing paints for things like reflecting light off of buildings to help cool the buildings better instead of using as much AC. So yeah, I look into, I can't remember what the name of the parent company is at the moment, but Dulux Paints parent company, especially out of the UK, are fantastic.
How do you spell that? You just said Dulux, like is it D-U?
D-U-L-U-X.
Okay, Dulux.
Yeah, I'll look it up and actually put the link in the chat here.
Also, I just wanted to, speaking of the Buy Nothing groups, that's great and it's emerging. And we just had a discussion today talking about our November webinar, which is going to be on that subject of Buy Nothing and DIY and, right to repair. So, but one of the things that we talked about is actually we were noticing that a lot of consumer goods companies are already talking or pushing for the holiday season and to buy your stuff early because of COVID, there's a lot of supply chain still like demands and hookups. So they want people to buy early. So they're gearing up to get us thinking about, the holidays sooner and consuming sooner because they know there's going to be a backlog coming up. So how do we, move that narrative? Maybe, by November, though, it might be too late to really kind of get this so that people aren't thinking along the lines of not being so much of a consumer-driven holiday to start thinking about, making your own presents and being creative and stuff. But that's great. So many are part of these Buy Nothing groups.
There's one piece on that note that comes to mind especially for packaging designers. I'm not sure if you've already noticed this or you will in the very near future. The price of single-use disposable packaging has actually gone up. It's the cost is going up, right? So if you were using plastic for single use, paper for single use, if you were shipping everything in one-time use cardboards, or even if you were using glass that was meant for single use, the cost of packaging has gone up. And the moment we start thinking reuse in design, there is an opportunity to even out some of these pricing concerns. There's a pretty deep body of research that is coming up on how reuse can help save businesses. primarily money on packaging, because packaging is not cheap, right? Anytime you're producing all these same things again and again, it is expensive. So if there are reuse and return systems at economies of scales, at optimal points, if a system is designed properly, they can actually beat the pricing of single-use packaging. So that is something to really think about, especially with the pandemic, especially when raw materials are becoming more scarce than before. How can we reuse and create like local circular economies, if not like national circular economies?
One of the things that we talk about is systems change, and I do feel that a lot of our answers to a lot of our problems are going to be regional. Back in how we used to even do food and trade, and it just kind of eliminating the multi, billion-dollar corporations and dependent on that. That you're, and for instance, food wouldn't need as much packaging, right? So it'd be fresher. You actually have a higher nutritional content. The money stays local. Even back to bottles, and there's a lot of bottle bills in the works in a lot of places. Bringing that back, we used to have a local bottler and reusing bottles, and that's creating jobs, that's creating things. It's not so much waste. We're not having to put everything, this whole lightweighting argument against glass or metals. It kind of throws that out the window if you're going to reuse it and have it be local and not traveling all over Carnation, or you're not getting that mango from Sri Lanka or whatever. It's just one of those things that the whole locavore movement too is to try to source your food. Some places are easier than others to really have a lot of the food systems be local, but you can do that with your goods and services as well. And that's again where the buy nothing to reuse, the right to repair, all those things are coming. That's just basically getting our communities back. We become citizens and community members and not consumers, and not isolating ourselves in our suburbs and we have to drive everywhere for our goods.
And one thing I'll add as we wrap up, being in this space for however long, it's just kind of funny how a lot of what we're talking about is really just unweaving the clusterfuck of capitalism that we've been accustomed to for the last couple hundred years. It's really just going back to how we used to live. I mean, solutions are great. These ideas are amazing. Yes, yes, yes. But it's just, we just need to live simpler lives. Seriously. It all just comes down to that.
I'd like to add something to that, Mark. I lived in an eco-village in rural Missouri for a while, and I felt pretty awkward when I went to visit the local dog and gun show. I wasn't sure how I'd be perceived by the local folks, and politically, we probably have pretty different views on a lot of things. We got into a conversation about how many ways can you use a mason jar? And we went on for about an hour, finding so much in common about this desire to return to simpler living and sustainable futures. And it was really inspiring for me to see how that can cross all of these artificial divides that we're finding ourselves polarized by these days.
We're going to go ahead and wrap up for those who need to get off at 6 o'clock. But thank you all so much for joining. We will send out a resource list to the event, anyone who joined from Eventbrite, and then also post it on Climate Designers, on Mighty Networks, so that everyone has any of the links that were mentioned. And thank you so much to Freedom and Sasha and Jackie for sharing your experiences and your awesome knowledge with us.
Thanks to you, Sasha Bond, as well, for organizing, and Mark and Sarah, and everybody who joined. Please feel free to reach out. We would love to discuss ideas. Just keep this going. This is just the beginning. I mean, we didn't even, I don't know, we didn't even go nowhere near the iceberg. I wouldn't even say the tip or whatever. Yeah, we'd love to continue these conversations, and there's some great work happening in reuse and return. And if we can do something within the climate designers community for that. I think that would be making some pretty deep strides within the organizations we are all in.
Yeah, this conversation, I think, never needs to end, right? You can keep thinking about it forever. All right.
Awesome.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all.
Did you want us to stay on for a little debrief, or are we done?
I would love to do a quick debrief if we can use Sasha's room or Sarah's room, if that's possible.
You can stay on.
Mark.
Yeah.
I'm gonna stop the recording.